Thank you guys who showed up here in person. If you're watching the streaming, thank you as well. Always thank you, Chris Delgado, for facilitating this. We have a very interesting crowd here. Johnny Cassio is with us. People back to basic in business.
Intensive.
That was intensive. That was spectacular. Really, the condensed information, an absolute must. And David Coker, also founder of Mainstream, and so many things happening, as we were just talking about, that can't be voiced right now. And I won't go all around, but also David Gafafian here. We got an event in LA, so if you're LA local tomorrow night, check out the event. Meanwhile, okay, you're here for you. We are preparing for an event called Infinite Reality. So I want to open a lot of doors that you'll walk through in your own ways. AZD, Arash, Zepar, motherfucking Dibazar is going to be with us within about 40-45 minutes. Stay tuned, stay tuned. And meanwhile, you know, it's interesting because I was in for about 10 days. It's a weird time of the year. I usually never have that. I didn't anticipate, but I had a bronchitis and it was pretty intense. So for about 10 days, after I wrestled and struggled with it, initially, which floor would you, David, be able to handle that phone communication with George? I really appreciate it. And if needed, the keys are here. So, I don't know how you deal with that, but for me, this is something that I tend to wrestle with when I don't feel optimal. I love to feel optimal. But I eventually had to surrender, and I ventured out in the world for the first time back today. And it's funny because when we're in something consistently, we become less aware of it than if we step out for a moment and step back in. I'm sure in your own ways, you've noticed that before. So, today, it was interesting. I was a little more aware of the harshness of certain people. Cars wanting to pass in front, somebody in line just, you know, kind of, I was obviously there before them, but instead of just acknowledging that, they were kind of in between and trying to push their way in. Little things like that. It's not that I was minding that so much, you know, that's just the way it is. But at the same time, it made me more aware that there's a tendency for many people to come from a place that's still too fear-based. Like, oh, me, oh, I need to get this. What's funny about it, and that's my point, is that it's kind of a false sense of wanting to take care of the self. It's a form of scarcity, thinking that if I don't push my way in, I may not be able to have my way. Now, an element of it might be helpful. That's not what I'm questioning. What I'm encouraging is to make sure that we constantly deepen the nurturing of the primary relationship we have in life, which is our relation with ourselves. In pickup, it's essential to constantly refine how we relate with ourselves, how we treat ourselves, how we support ourselves, how we encourage ourselves, and even more, how we become our own host in a way. All of that to say, you're here watching this tonight. You're here in person tonight. Yes, it's great to see each other. Yes, I really appreciate the fact that you made the time to listen to what we have to share. But ultimately, you're here for one person, and that person is you. So please, for you, in your own ways, make it count. We're going to address infinite realities. And infinite realities, for me, right away, if I hear infinite realities, I'm interested in which of all those realities. Before we even talk about infinite realities, which one would you be most interested in? The highest one. Now, the word highest can be deceiving, right? Because we have been conditioned to pay attention, be a good boy, be a good girl, be at your best. So we may have a false sense of highest. So it's more about the one that's the center of the bull's eye for you, where there's no compromise, where things really come together for you in the most organic manner. So here's right away, extreme value. It's simple. Sometimes we omit the simple stuff. Anyone, whether it's pickup, work, sales, dealing with people, who wrestles with a touch of anxiety, if every time that they feel a bit concerned, or, oh, this, that girl over there, should I go? Yes, no, maybe. If every time they did something as simple as take a breath, in that moment, for those two to coexist, to experience a touch of discomfort, and at the same time take a breath, and they were to stay consistent with that, as simple as it may appear to be, that would be priceless. That would not be the only thing and take care of everything, but that would certainly make everything better. So, if you focus consistently on the idea of, okay, what would it be like for me right now to embrace the finest reality for me? Try it for a second. You know, AZD is coming the distance. That's a big trip. I know some of you guys, you made the trip the opposite way, going to San Jose. And when he opened the club over there, I really wanted to go. But last minute, there was something with my car. I wanted to book a flight. I ended up buying a plane ticket to go LA to San Jose that could have basically almost taken me to London for that price. Round trip, last minute. By the time I get to Burbank Airport, on top of everything, the flight is delayed. Then I forgot to tell my bank that I was traveling because I thought San Jose is just so close, you know. No, they blocked my car, so I couldn't take my Uber. So I ended up catching a taxi. It was hard to find one. I get there and it's like the last 15 minutes of shaking hands and the event is basically over. So I thought, wow, that was a long trip. And I was to fly back the next day. And then I go, wait a minute, I'm going to make this pay off unlike anything before. So I started to joke around and say, I came to find enlightenment in San Jose. Now, you can put anything that you want in the place of enlightenment. But imagine ultimately that even though this is free, you showed up, that there is something of extreme value for you that I would not maybe even be aware of, that you're not even aware of. And wherever the mind is directed, we begin to make more distinctions. Proof of that is a tiny little worry can turn into a monster if we don't control it. Ever leave the house and you wonder if you left the bath on or not? And then you already imagine like some fire trucks outside and the landlord or the neighbors going, you motherfucker, you ruined the building! And then everything was okay. Or, that's a silly example, but I know you have your own example. So, pause for a second, and before we even venture in the direction of, okay, infinite realities, what do you mean? Let's imagine for a moment that you embrace the highest possible equation for you through your presence here tonight. A breakthrough, an idea, rekindling with yourself. See, motivation is something we come back to. It's almost like meditation. In a way, it's all of it is almost, it's like a meditation, coming back to it. And then we gather a little dust and we dust it off, and more often we can come back to this. So, first gift of the evening. Pause for a second, you two watching at home, take a breath. And not in a way where you are to experience this right away. That's a distinction I got from Frank White. You know, initially we would clear chakras and we would go at it for 30 minutes. So like, no, 30 minutes, what am I saying? 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, clear my chakras, go deeper, deeper, deeper. And Frank does that thing where he goes, okay, first chakra, second. He got me to realize that it doesn't take that much effort because the effort presupposes that it's going to be difficult, that it's far, that it's not there. So just play with it and start to open that door. You don't know it. It may not be that you walk down there and the girl is ready. Oh my God, who are you? Or you check out your PayPal and you got like, oh my God, this is like the biggest client I've ever had. But that is in motion starting right here and right now. And don't try to see it, envision it. It's more about capturing the kind of overall energy field that would be around your energy centers. If right now you know for sure. Okay, so that's the first gift. That's simple. Of course, you could share that with 1,000 people or 100,000 people in a stadium. There will be a couple of people, they're there already. Some of you're there already. Some majority would be, yeah, it's interesting. But my question is, and then some may not really get it. Go. So, at the same time, we have some of my dear colleagues and the people who also inspire me in my life that just arrived. Brian Casella, you want to quickly say hello? You can't have Brian Casella here without you getting the camera for a second. How are you, Brian?
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Looking sharp and strong, as always. Yeah.
From the weekend with Arash, which was incredible.
Wow.
San Jose, what an event. But yeah, you know, I have Yogi Chris with me. He's here temporarily as well for a few weeks. Learning a lot from him. We have our esteemed guest, Pete, from New Zealand.
No way, Pete. Really good to meet you, Pete.
Yeah, he joined us for the weekend with Arash. So,
wow, wonderful.
Yeah, it's just been incredible. You know, we've had a lot of breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Excited to be here and see you. I know.
Yeah, ACD is on his way, so.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
so thank you guys for making it, and I'm sure we'll get to pass the floor here and there throughout the weekend. And Chris DeVille Bliss.
Thanks for having me. It's really refreshing to hear your voice again. Rekindles something in me. The way that you fluctuate with your tonality. I'm a big fan of your voice and your delivery, and it's just, I'm really happy to be here. For sure.
This is an amazing surprise. You know, I just figured that out like during the past 48 hours that you were here, and I had no clue that I was going to see you so soon in person. And the beer, phenomenal. Yes. I witnessed the shaping of it. Yeah. So it's amazing, the evolution, you know, through time. So, meanwhile, we are going to talk about infinite realities. Identity also, a couple priceless, simple distinctions. Identity is everything. Two more quick little stories. You relate to them. Be here for you. I think the number one most unattended muscle to really make headways for you, by you, as you, is self-reliance in terms of your study in self-help. Why? Because we're surrounded by people that more and more want it to come to them. And we are unaware that they exist, speaking of infinite realities. Much more space and options and opportunity to really, truly benefit even from a glimpse of wisdom. Glimpse of wisdom. You know, I was just saying that sometimes you don't know what's to come, and to expect that life will always be a straight line, that's a great aim for reference, for motivation. Without an ideal, we wouldn't know where we're going. Yet, just like we have two legs and there's winter and summer and north and south, it's also intelligent to expect the unexpected and know that the swing of the pendulum, AZD had introduced that idea when we did the first non-pickup event, Inner Alchemy, which also applies for pickup. To know that, and Frank reinforces that as well, to know that if today we feel like $1 million, it would not be complete if we don't know the opposite of that. We would not appreciate it as much, and we would not grow as much. So there's going to be somewhere, somehow, the polarity. So for me, the polarity was to have to surrender to the fact that I had a bronchitis, that I dragged a little bit through time because I was refusing to just lay, rest, and relax. So I had a little bit more time to watch more videos. I was watching your podcast the other day, and I was watching some of your videos, Brian, also. But usually it's just like, you know, I'm on Facebook and I go, oh, Chris, and I just check. But it's amazing. I can read one quote from Brian, AZD, from you, Chris, and if you have that level of self-reliance that I'm talking about, I could not finish one of my sentences, and I'm sure Johnny Cassio could turn that into a 3-hour, super rich lecture. Okay? So do the work, do your part, make it count. You showed up, and take something of incredible value tonight. That's my challenge to you, independently of what you hear. But there's plenty here, even the synergistic impact of the fact that there's so many brilliant minds here. That's enough. That would be enough for somebody to really start to arise with zero obligation. Okay, now I'm still Vince Kelvin, Vince Hollywood Kelvin. I'm wearing a Motley Crue t-shirt, and I'm happy to also answer any pickup question. I had, this is probably gonna, appear that I have a form of threat that we still don't know of, and maybe somebody has a solution for it. But they recently had a documentary on Netflix. Not a documentary, the story of their lives. So I start to watch it, whether you like Motley Crue or not. And see, the cool thing is, in any direction that you're going. For example, how many people can have the experience that Brian has to go like, I'm driving this kind of car to this kind of mansion. And to be able to relish that, to know that it's done it. It's an experience that I got my little cool car, but I don't have that experience. So where it matters, grant yourself the richness of experiences that only a man in a million will have. So the proper audience will not follow this, but right at the beginning of the movie, suddenly they're backstage. It's like a little party. There's chicks all over the place, there's guys all over the place. And this one guy is pouring through his mouth beer inside the vagina of a girl. And we don't know that he's doing that. We think he's just eating her. And then she splashes it back out. Whoa. Now, I'm happy to say that I didn't do it with beer, but I did it with water. And I also did it in front of a live audience at Project Hollywood. Once we had a podcast. It wasn't called the Real Kings of Pickup. It was called the Kings of Pickup. We added the real to just rub it in the face of this individual that was mentioned in the book, The Pickup Artist, known as the Rat. So there we were having our event, and they were filming, and they were taking pictures, and this girl was there. Grabbed some water inside of her, and she splashed it back up. So that's absolutely ridiculous as a story, but how many people can say they have done that? So, all of that to say, that's any pickup question I want to hear from you guys. Let's talk a little bit about parallel realities. Since that's the topic of the weekend. Somebody has my phone. What a spectacular phone thief. Good, how's everybody doing so far?
Good.
Phenomenal. Good? Okay, so the first concept, 3 core concepts, simple, we open doors, you walk through those doors. I'm not attached to those concepts, but I know that brilliant minds hearing this, you're going to do something phenomenal out of it. Causality versus fatality. What's the difference between the two? And forgive my accent, maybe somebody can say those two words better than I just said them.
One is the beginning and one is the end, right?
Yeah.
One brings life and one ends life.
Okay, very good. I didn't expect that. Spectacular. At the level of processing information to evaluate what's happening. For example, I could go, I give you my own example, find your own. When you hear those stories and so on, make sure that you don't have to relate to the story, but relate it to a part of your life that could use something similar. So, I could be one of those people who goes, wow, god damn it! Where did that cold come from? Right? So, what would that be? Fatality.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it just happened. Or I could take responsibility and go, hey, there were many signs that I needed a little rest. I was pushing myself, a little too much of this, too much of that. Ah, that's a surprise. Okay, it's logic. Now, there's plenty places in my life where I'm coming from a place of, I know that I'm at the cause, but like everybody else, there's also plenty places where I'm quickly, despite all the knowledge, back into, oh, why did that happen? Ah! Sometimes with the small stuff. In all honesty, if we could monitor each one of us through the course of an entire day, we would find a fluctuation of both. So the ability, whether it's game or any aspect of your life, to, boom, a sword, cut it in half. When are you aware that there is a reason for it? And when do you go back to, it just happened? Notice, for all of you guys who are around quite a bit, questions like, well, you know, I was doing well, the conversation was going so well, but then what? If you're following the post in Made a Frame Be With You, there was one that was answered beautifully by Mystery. I don't know if you saw it. I'm not putting the guy down if you're watching this now. Yeah, Mystery gave the classic answer that you hear from AZD all the time and that I support 100%. I'm sure you guys support 100%. It's like, no, the real answer to your question is that you need to study. That's it. Okay, you need to study. So that's what Mystery told the guy. But the guy was in a story where he had exhausted all possible nightclub in his hometown. So that's what had happened. No, I understand, I know, but now, first, my sense of pure pickup is 360. Loneliness turns into solitude. A breakup turns into a free-up. It doesn't matter what direction you're going into. A night when you hear no all the time is an emotional workout like no other. So you go home, how was your night? You're not like, oh man, they weren't that. No, that's your workout. That's really precious right there. Whatever you're working on, almost like you're on the freeway, you constantly readjust the lane. And you stay in mission no matter what. Otherwise, you're shifting back to what we were saying before, you're going back to fatality. You're at the mercy, you're no longer at the cause. So, it's not that you're dealing with a flake. What is it in reality? You have an opportunity to refine, not in one dimension, multi-dimensional manner, how you perceive that, how you deal with it, how you feel about it. And the more you refine that, the better you'll do with such situations. Okay? So we gotta watch out and to really clean house. Because if we are really honest with ourselves and we observe everybody around, people tend to continue to do what they already were doing before. But the real growth is outside of that. Right? Yeah. It's outside of that. So that's what we're interested in. We don't care how well you're doing or not so well. We care about how much better you can do if you open your mind to it. And for that to be in effect, it takes the ability to observe the self without judging, honestly, and detect when we go back to, a story. A story is like a filter. And when, also, observe both, and when we're at cause. And if we did one thing, here's another one-step exercise that could revolutionize the reality of anyone who's committed to do so, would be to do your best to constantly come back to, if I was at cause right now, how would I better handle that? So think where, for you specifically, and when. Observe those fluctuations. Model when you're really coming from a place of wisdom and strength. Duplicate more of that, and do your best to reduce the tendency to sometimes go back to, like me, 7 days ago. That's the last thing I needed right now. I got stuff to do, and why do I have to feel this? Okay. Solution. All right. Just rest for 3 days and shift lane. The new mission became the idea of the power of surrender, which is essential to shift reality. Now we make it come together even more, if you'd like to. So, I'm outside of the coffee place, and I notice a girl. When we notice women, or anything you may notice, okay? By now we know that you can apply this in so many different directions and ways. Become aware of the projection and the regression. First thing that will mess up with identity and reality, I call it PR, but not as in public relation. My sweet girlfriend did everything perfectly, including wearing a little nurse outfit, but didn't put the markers in my bag. So. That first one, I hope you can read. It's not. Projection and regression. Now, projection and regression are neither good or bad. For example, if suddenly, so many of us know each other here, we recall, so it's a recall or a regression, a pleasant moment, like that first seminar we did together, over 15 years ago, and then we all went to Geisha House. See, he's smiling, I'm smiling too. So, is it a bad thing or a good thing that we're recalling? Okay? But now if we omit all the time that has passed by in between, and all that is available here tonight, then we could also go, oh man, I wish they still had Geisha House. Why did they have to close it? But there's new places where we can top what we did then. It's amazing. You got to pay attention. And again, I think our biggest challenge to really live like champions in our own ways, because no one is there to define what the true nature of being a champion should be, is to pay attention beyond what we have learned we should pay attention to. What I paid attention to for a moment is so subtle and subconscious that most people would not be aware that they're paying attention in that manner. So I invite you to really look deeper. There's a girl across the street, and first thing, she reminds me of someone. There's not one person that you cross paths with that will not remind you of someone, something, or somewhere. Right? Mm-hmm. Someone, something, or somewhere. Right. And it may be deeply buried subconsciously that you recall that in school, high school, elementary school, where you ranked compared to that person, or at work or in the world. So a guy could be looking at a beautiful woman, but subconsciously he's having a recall. The recall leads to a projection, and it's a crazy back and forth that could have some pluses in it. Okay? For example, I recall like I see a girl that kind of looks like the girl that I shoved water inside her pussy, and she reminds me of that moment. I probably shouldn't think that it's too difficult for me to start to interact with her and get her number. Because in my own head I'd be like, you look just like that girl that... Anyway. Yeah. But you know what? Throughout the years, there were a couple of guys who, even some of my trainers in training that then went on, they opted that if they had been gay, instead of saying, you know what, fuck you, we're gay, that's our choice. You want to discriminate? You want to think that we're less? No. That if they had been gay, they would have said, maybe we're a little too gay. Maybe we need to soften it up. Maybe we need to act a little more manly so people won't know. No, that's fucked up. Okay? So right now, for me, I'm going to be even more of a pest in talking about the masculinity and, yeah, of course we do pick up. Of course. Isn't that a little bit manipulative? Yes, absolutely. You're right. No problem with that. We're married. But is there more to it than getting laid? Yeah, it will lead to a lot of spiritual growth, but honestly, I don't think we would spend that much time talking to girls if it wasn't to get laid. You got a problem with that? You have a problem. It's 2019. Wow. Your level of discrimination. What's next? You want to put me in a fucking camp because I talk like a man? Hey, that's going backwards. So, anyway, I deviate. So I see the girl, and as I see the girl, there's all that fucking regression happening, and I become aware of it. Then I look at her, and I notice the difference from looking at her with all that subtle manifestation that if you were next to me, you would not be aware of it, and you have it too, and you would not be aware of it. Then I drop that for a second, and I exist in a reality that's more spacious. I don't know who she is. Yes, she may remind me of someone, but, you know, I don't know what she's going to do, what she's not going to do. I don't know who she is. And I don't even know who I am in that moment. Because I can make all those decisions about who I am. They may empower me, but I'm interested in something beyond that will empower me even more. It's beyond. That which is operating the blinking of my eyes. That which helps me digest food. That which has been, you know, sweating it out so my immunity gets higher. Wow. That does not need to be defined. And then I look at her, and she's looking at me differently. So I want to open that door for you guys this weekend. At all levels. And I would not want to claim that I've done it perfectly in pickup, but that's something that I've always had. David, wouldn't you attest that oftentimes when